All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. And if you've been hearing about the xTool UV machine, they've been trying to get this thing out for probably close to a year now. Well, it's finally here, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on one of the early models. And so today we're going to be talking about the F2 Ultra UV. It's the latest in xTool's lineup of Galvo machines, and I will say it is a very versatile machine. And guys, yeah, I get it. The crystal stuff is cool, but the thing that sets UV apart from all other machines, in my opinion, is not the crystal. It's the versatility to be able to mark almost any material. That's why UVs in my shop, despite the fact that they're not necessarily the fastest machine, they are very versatile, and I tend to go to them a lot. So I've been running the gamut on this machine, testing lots of different materials, and I kind of want to go over some of the high-flying thoughts that I have of the machine. We're not going to get too far in the weeds. I'm going to try to keep this video short. There'll be more to come because, yeah, it's got a home. It's going to stay. So stick around, and we're going to talk about it. All right, so I'm going to spare you all of the technical jargon and stuff that they include with all the, the briefs. All right, I'll drop a link down below. You can go check out that link. If you're into knowing all of the different nerd specs, feel free, knock yourself out, read about it. But the basic overview of the machine is this is a UV Galvo laser. It has a 200 by 200 work area and has 5 watts of power. Those are the big things, okay? It does have a camera. The camera, to my experience, running it pretty heavily for the past couple of weeks, the camera's pretty accurate. As long as you focus before taking the snapshot, it's really good at getting you where you need to be. Now, as a safeguard, I do recommend that you use the frame option as well, just to be on the safe side, especially if it's something you can't replace. You don't want that happening. Now, UVs, compared to all other machines, do have a bit of a specialty. Think of a UV laser as more of a multi-tool. It's not going to be the fastest laser on the market. It's not going to engrave the deepest. You're not going to cut a bunch of stuff with it. But you can engrave almost everything. I went to Dollar Tree today and picked up some plastic cups. I have no idea what these things are made out of. It's some kind of plastic. And I know that's probably not the safest thing to do. I just put my faith in the AP2 and guessed at some settings. I basically used the settings for red acrylic, and I engraved them. This one didn't turn out quite the way I'd wanted it to. No harm, no foul. But yeah, these were, I think I paid $1 for them. Yeah, $1.25. And that is that's actually the circumference written on the bottom of them. Little thing that I do, cheat sometimes. But just guessed at settings. It works, okay? So you're like, all right, well, I want to do red acrylic. Red acrylic, UVs love red acrylic. Engraving red acrylic gives you a nice white finish, which is true for most every acrylics that I've tried. When you engrave it, basically through some, process involving the photons and cells and the reactment of the pigments and all that, it turns stuff white, okay? Basically, it knocks all the color pigments out of the material, whatever it is. So typically, no matter what color something is, it's kind of like if you left it laying in the sun for too long and it bleached it white. Yeah, same effect, a lot more precise and a lot quicker. But there you go. It looks as though it was painted on there with a stencil, but it's not. That is a UV laser doing its thing. I'm going to be throwing some B-roll in here with some of this as well because, like I said, I want to try to keep this video as short as I can. Now, cutting. 3mm. This is just some little 3mm Luan, little plywood. Nothing too crazy. Cut it really nice. This is some 4.7mm material. This stuff right here typically takes a 40-watt laser about 6mm a second to cut with good air assist. But as you can see, I'm making multiple passes. This was set to do 4 passes, but I'm getting nice clean cuts, no soot or anything like that. But one of the reasons that I would not recommend cutting with a Galvo is, as you can see right there, guys, I don't know how obvious it is to you, but that is not a square edge. The edge that you cut is going to be in somewhat of a conical shape because the beam's originating from the same spot coming down, kind of like an upside down ice cream cone. And so as it cuts, the edges are always going to be slanted from the top out toward the bottom. So you're always going to get that. Now, if you're making things like earrings or little decorative things or something to stick on the refrigerator, if you start in the center so that you have a uniform edges all the way around it, it's not that noticeable. But if you're trying to make things that snap together, this is not what you want. All right, so one of the big things about UV lasers is the dot size. The dot size is tiny, okay? The dot of a UV laser is tiny in comparison to any other machine, including a fiber laser. Fiber lasers dots are really small, but nowhere near as small as a UV. So in having such a small dot size, it affords you some really high resolution because it's hard to have high resolution, you know, when you're using the big fat crayon, right? You need something with a finer tip to be able to get more detail. And so with the UVs, you get some really good detail. Now this is a piece of just anodized aluminum sheet that I play around with. I cut it into whatever size I need and do an image. And that is an image of my sawmill up on the hill there that was taken at night. So the image was dark everywhere except where the mill is. And that's why you get this nice little image there. So one of the biggest things that I see people asking a lot of times is like on anodized materials, how do you get like the white look on anodized materials? Well, there you go. Now you got the secret. It's UV lasers. UV lasers do a really good job. IR will give you kind of a gray, and sometimes you can get almost like a silver, but to get that white pop, it just about gotta have a UV laser to do that. Now, we've all saw the commercials, we've heard the hype and about the crystals, and I'm going to show you guys something, but don't hold it against me. All right. So the inner crystal engraving, it does work. And yes, for you guys that know what that is a little benchy inside there with my little logo that I made that says, you know, xTool and the Clack Shack and all that stuff. These things look awesome. Now, I will tell you, practicing can be expensive. The blanks are not cheap. And just so you guys know that, contrary to what everybody tells you, those guys that have YouTube channels, yeah, they mess things up too. Check that out. So if you go too slow and you put too much heat in a crystal, now I got one pretty good little benchy right there. See that little benchy? Pretty good. But what I did is I got a little experimental with my settings, and I overheated the center of this crystal, and all of a sudden it just said now it didn't explode, but what it did was it fractured, and then I went in there and the piece was just kind of sitting on top of the other piece. So always be careful when you're doing stuff like this. But I did several of the crystals. It works really well. There's one setting in the software that says this is what is called the outline feel, engrave. I haven't done the feel. I tried to do the feel, and that's how I blew up the crystal. I can't quite get the settings right for that, so I'm not sure what's going on. But the crystals that I got some from Amazon and some from some other companies. So it could very well just be a difference in the type of crystal. And there is the, if you've seen any of their advertisement, that's the little galaxy that they've been advertising. I was a little underwhelmed. I should have made it bigger. I just imported it and ran it the way it was. Should have made it bigger. I feel like this crystal was wasted. So if you burn the give me file, make it a little bigger. Make it fill in your crystal a little bit. Glass, crystals, all those things. Those are one of the things where a UV laser it's like magic. Like it does a great job. But I will tell you one thing about glass is that glasses that are shaped like this are not good. One of the disadvantages to a UV and to most galvo lasers, in all fairness, is that focus is very, very specific. 2 to 3 millimeters out of focus can be the difference between leaving a mark and not leaving a mark. With some materials, being out of focus by 2 or 3 millimeters is an advantage. Glass is not one of those materials. Because of the hardness of glass and the way that the laser interacts with glass, it is very particular to whether or not your focus is set. So with this glass, as you'll see, this thing has a bit of a roller coaster of a focal plane there. But you'll also notice, let me get something to put in here so that you can actually see it. But you'll also notice that I was able to engrave the glass. And you're asking yourself, well, you just said the focus was really particular. How'd you pull that off? I did it like 4 times. All right. And the reason I did is because I had told my wife I was going to make her this cup. And I wanted to see, is there a way, even with this issue, is there a way to do it? And the answer is yes, there is. I was able to do it by taking measurements from multiple locations on the glass and setting the focus consistent with that. Basically, I took all my measurements and then I took the middle measurement. I used that as my focus for the first pass that I did. Then I raised the laser up, did 1 pass to get some of the other high spots, and then lowered it down. So basically, I did 3 passes in order to get the beam in focus to be able to do this entire glass. Now, it was a pain. And if my wife did not want this cup, I probably wouldn't have done it because I only had $1.25 in it. But I did. I was able to do it. I made it work. And you've been warned. Glass needs to be flat. 1 even surface with glass. If not, you're going to have to do like I did. All right. Another big thing I've been getting asked, metals. My first response to that is, if you're wanting to do heavy etching or really dark engravings, really large engravings on metal, go get yourself this guy's like gray cousin, the F2 Ultra. The MOPA is what you're going to need to mark metals that way. Can this machine mark metals? Yes. Is it fast at marking metals? No. I spent most of the day today testing different materials, and this is my test tumbler that I've tested with this machine. No other laser has engraved this tumbler, and you can see some of the results that I've got. I have played with speed and power. I've played with frequency, number of passes. I've raised the focus. I've lowered the focus. The best settings that I could come up with just 1 test cup. I could probably get closer with more test cups. This is the settings that I ran, and this is the engrave that I got. As you can see, it was a little hot. I have actually turned the stainless steel a bit of a shade of gray. So is it possible to engrave tumblers? Yes. Is it going to be the ideal, pristine, shiny finish up here? Maybe, if you practice enough, if you're skilled enough. I will tell you this, though. The detail is insane. Like, there are no rounded corners. Everything is crisp. Everything is sharp. And it done a good job. It was painfully slow compared to what I'm used to with other machines. But it can be done. One thing that I did find, and one thing that I did with another different color tumbler, is that if you were wanting to do an image on, like, say, a white tumbler or some other color tumbler, the UV will actually change the color of the coating on tumblers. So you could get creative with the way that you engrave them. But trying to do 60 to 80 tumblers on a UV laser with 5 watts of power and such a really, really high LPI, it's going to take a while. And that's what, with this machine, doing tumblers, I did raise the focus. I focused the machine on the tumbler, got everything set up, and then I manually added 3 millimeters to the focus and raised the laser head 3 millimeters in order to get this result here. So I always raise the focus with any machine that I'm doing to keep from leaving the little scratch lines in the engraving. But with the UV, you kind of have to do that in order to take that little tiny point and make it a little bigger. to cover a wider area. And by raising the focus and turning your LPI or your dots per inch down to a lower number like 100, enables you to be able to complete a job a little faster. It also, when it's out of focus like that, tends to generate a little more heat a lot of times, and so it gives you a different effect. And that was playing with the settings a lot. To be honest, if you want to do tumblers, CO2 is where it's at. Blue laser would be my second pick. Fiber is my third pick for tumblers, and UV tumblers is not where I would go for UV. If you're just doing one for yourself, knock yourself out. But if you're doing them like repetitiously, it's gonna take forever. And the settings are a little tricky to find. And at some point, your expense in testing outweighs your cost that you're selling these things for. So let's move to some different materials. All right, and another thing that I've been doing this week while I was testing some of the glass and stuff and waiting on those to go because they're a little slow also, is I created this totally useless but kind of unique little project here. I made this little grocery holder thing using the CNC, the lasers, and 3D printers. It's the same file. I just created it in 3 different methods. Well, I also used the F2 Ultra to customize it. Okay, this is plywood. This is birch plywood. It's some pre-finished stuff that I use. 2 layers of it, so each side is finished, and I engraved it with the F2 Ultra. It does a great job of engraving woods. Gives you nice crisp resolution, not a lot of smoke, not a lot of risk of fire and stuff like that. So when it comes to wood, it does a great job. And it's a lot more forgiving with wood on the focus also. And so the other one that I did, this one I printed with some PETG. Yeah, printed this one with PETG on my Bamboo Labs printer and went ahead and engraved it with the Ultra UV as well. That is the really cool thing about this laser. If you're into doing small projects, or if you're just trying to put your mark on stuff, if you're into 3D printing, not necessarily in the lasers, but you're into 3D printing and you're making parts that you want customized, you want part numbers on there, you want whatever, then UV is the way to go, because a UV laser can engrave on most any type of material that I've found. I'm sure there's something that it can engrave. As long as you can find a nice flat surface, it'll engrave it. And sometimes, even if you can't find a flat surface, such as little pot things that you like put under your hot pots or pans, or you use it like a little glove to pick up hot pots and pans. Now, these are cheap ones. I got these also at Dollar Tree. Did a little bit of testing. This was the testing that I did. I had to find the right balance between frequency, speed, and power to basically, like we talked about earlier, destroy the pigmentation in the fabric and make it white, which is what I ended up doing. Speaking of fabrics, also played around a little bit with some microfiber cloth, and you can see here that I was able to engrave logos in that. I didn't spend a lot of time testing with it because this is not something I plan on doing. I just wanted to see, because if ever there were going to be a fire, this should have started a fire. And I didn't have a fire, so good deal there. But altogether, guys, I don't want to spend all day going over everything about this machine. You've seen plenty of videos. There's lots of guys out there doing videos with the machine. I will be doing more in-depth things per project. I'd like to be able to take you into the xTool Studio software and show you the project from thought to finished product. And that's just not doable in a initial review video, because we'd be here all night and none of us have time for that. All right, guys, so if you hadn't figured it out yet, I like it. All right, UV lasers, like I said, have been my go-to lately for one-offs and small projects because of the versatility of the materials, the less risk of fire damage. If you're engraving something that's already built, like on a wooden project or something like that, little small box or something, you don't have to worry about the gases and the scorching and stuff like that you have with non-UV lasers. It burns through painter's tape really easy, because I like using painter's tape. If I'm doing something that's already constructed, I'll painter's tape it up, engrave, and then backfill it with paint, as I've shown you right over here. So when those jobs come in, a UV is it's a safe bet to go to. It's not as fast as some of the other machines, but I really do like having them around the shop before those times where I feel like, maybe we start out really kind of just ease into it instead of just going full force with, a blue diode or a fiber. Sometimes a UV to me is a safer bet when you're dealing with something that you really don't know how it's going to react with the laser. There's less chance of any kind of catastrophic damage. From my experience, there's less chance with the UVs. And so they've been being my go-to pretty frequently lately. And like I said, with the acrylics and stuff like that, the anodized stuff, it opens up a whole new ball game for you. So with that said, guys, I know xTool did their video tonight and they've released the machine, and it's available. If you do decide to go purchase the machine and you want to use my links, feel free. There's always going to be a link in every video that I do. I try not to push those things too hard, but you know where they are. Go check them out. And until next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.